So there's some new bills in Congress that, if passed, would impact federal workers all across the country. I'm going to go over a few of them and then talk about the likelihood and probability of them actually getting passed. The first one is the FAIR Act. This law would essentially provide a 4.3% pay raise across the board to all federal employees. And the reason why is because it has become difficult to attract and retain quality workers. And if you don't think that that's a problem the government's dealing with right now, look at what agencies are currently doing. We have agencies such as the GSA rescinding layoff notices. IRS doing the same thing. They weren't even supposed to hire this year, and they're hiring thousands. So it's become a bigger deal than most have realized. And what we have for 2026 so far is a 1% raise. That's what we're looking at. 1% across the board and 3.8% for certain law enforcement positions. But you have to realize that any number lower than 3% is a pay decrease because your buying power is decreased. Inflation is smacking your earnings. It's smacking your checking account and your savings account. So when you go to the grocery store, when you're paying your bills, when you have to pay your insurance premiums, it doesn't care about a 1% pay raise. You don't have the same buying power. And this has been going on for quite some time. If you look at it, if you zoom all the way out, 20 years ago, let's go back, get in a time machine, let's go back to 2005. If you wanted to keep the same buying power as a federal worker from 2005, 20 years ago, you would need to increase the pay by over 60%. 60, by over 60%. And still you probably wouldn't get there. So we're eroding the salaries, the buying power of our federal workers. But we're still expecting high standards. We want them not to mess up with the SSA payments, disability, VA. Make sure you fix the highways. Make sure the planes land safely when it comes to air traffic controllers and all of that. We're looking for high quality talent and we want them to stay, but we're not paying them anything. We're paying them peanuts. Speaking of paychecks getting squeezed, let's not ignore the elephant in the room right now. We have a government shutdown taking place like in 6 days at the time of this recording. So there has been no agreement. September 30th is the last day. And what a gross waste of money that will be if it happens. If the government shuts down, you will have hundreds of thousands of federal workers that get furloughed. So they're not working. They're not serving the public. That's not happening. But you're paying them because at the end of the shutdown, they will have their pay automatically restored. So is there any less efficient way to spend taxpayer dollars than to do that? And you would think that Congress would be penalized for failing in their job of passing a budget, but they're not penalized. It's like the only group that if you fail to do your job, you don't have to face the consequences. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. Right now, we're at a 70% chance. If you look at some of those websites that actually bet money on this, there's a 70% probability it looks like there will be a shutdown in the next 6 days. Okay, the next bill is the Equal COLA Act. And this is great. I think this is great because you have two different types of federal retirees. You have somebody on the CSRS pension plan, and then you have somebody on FERS, the Federal Employee Retirement System. FERS is the new pension. So these two categories of federal retirees, their cost of living allowance every year that goes through, it's different. So CSRS, the old pension system, they're getting higher pay bumps. If you compare it, if you just look the last 6 years, FERS has received 3.8% less than CSRS. That's like an over $1,000 a year difference. Why is this? Why is there a difference? When they designed FERS, the whole point behind FERS was for that pension system to cost a lot less. It was to save money. And that's why one of the three pillars is the Social Security check. So that way, the government doesn't have to even consider it. Everybody gets Social Security that contributes to it, or even people that don't even contribute to it. But the thing about it is that it was designed to be cheaper, and that's one of the things that you get with it. What really would be nice honestly, is if the COLA adjustments could be a little bit around, the actual pay raises that the federal workers get. There's a disconnect between the two, because if you look at COLA, it looks at CPI. So it looks at, the inflation. And if you look at pay raises, that's done by like labor comparison to see what people make to offer a competitive wage, even though that's, highly debatable. But if you could close that gap, I think that would do a lot. That would go a long way when you're talking about fairness in pay. Same thing with the military, if you look at it. Military pay raise is completely different than your cost of living. Once you're retired and you receive a pension, your cost of living adjustment is completely different than the military pay raise. So that's something that, if addressed, I think would be a good thing. The next one is called the Saving the Civil Service Act. Now, this one blocks future administrations from reviving Schedule F. This one's not getting passed. Everyone knows that. This administration has made a point that one of their cornerstones in their approach to the federal workforce is to implement Schedule F. They're calling it something else now. They're calling it like, policy/career or something like that. But essentially, this makes federal workers at will. So this act is trying to prevent that. Really, all three bills have a very small chance of passing. They're not going to pass this year. So why are we even talking about it? We're talking about it because it's being mentioned. People are discussing it, and politics change. It's not always going to be like it is right now. Next year, we have midterms. We have probably new people coming in and out of the House of Representatives. The same thing could be said about the Senate. So you could have a completely different dynamic in 2026, towards the end of 2026. If you and the people that you know go out and vote for, who you think has your best interest in mind, if you do that, we could see some real change. That's why we're talking about it. A lot of times bills are proposed in Congress and they don't go anywhere for 2 or 3 years. It takes public support. It takes a type of momentum to get this thing through. But eventually it could happen. Not in the near future, but let's say in the next 3 to 4 years, something like that. So in addition to this, like I mentioned earlier, we have more and more agencies that have started to rescind their layoff notices. They're hoping that the workers will rejoin them and be content. But in reality, do you think that if your organization, if your company fires you, and then they're like, hey, come back, do you think that you're on good terms, let's say? Probably not. You probably harbored a little resentment. And who can blame you? Nobody likes to be treated that way. But if you want to know more about the most recent agency that is rescinding those layoffs, if you want to know that, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.